Now let's go behind the rock screen.
You're welcome to come on in. We'll bring out the moonshine, start telling lies and calling up the women. But no talk about racing. Come on.
Hey everybody, this is Josh with the Dirt Court Jesters podcast, joined by the driver of the number 97 Midget from Indianapolis, Indiana, by way of Ventura, California, Jim Jones. Mr. Jones, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Josh. Appreciate it.
So, in trying to do some research on you, I understand you got motivated to start racing in your 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? And if so, fill me in on how that happened.
Well, it's just a matter of timing and circumstance. I can't really ever remember not wanting to be a race driver. I don't know exactly where I got it. My dad was a stick and ball guy. My mom mentioned that she had gone to the midget races at Gilmore Stadium in LA back in the 30s and 40s. So maybe that's where I got it. And back in the 50s, jalopy racing used to be televised every Sunday afternoon. Started out from Culver City on Channel 11 with Bill Welch, and then on Channel 5 with Dick Lane from Gardena Stadium. And I guess that was on when I was in my formative years, and got hooked on that. That's where Parnelli Jones started out. I don't know if you've heard the name Bob Hogold or Billy Wilkerson, but those are some big time West Coast guys who morphed up into the sprint cars. And then of course Parnelli went on to go to Indianapolis, and I was always he was always one of my heroes. I guess the last name had something to do with that, but he was just a darn good race car driver too. And so like I said, I can't remember ever not wanting to be a race car driver. We would go, my first memory is going to jalopy races, a little track called the Carpinteria Thunder Bowl. It's about halfway up the coast between Ventura and Santa Barbara, and literally right on a bluff overlooking the beach, with ice plant on the embankments, and little 1/3 mile, maybe even a 1/4 mile bank bowl. They raced, I think they started out racing midgets there and mostly raced jalopies after that. And then went down to Gardena Stadium to watch one of the televised races. And I remember one of the cars taking an end over end tumble through a Toyo Pet billboard, which was predecessor to Toyota. Ended up in the parking lot. And Bobby Hogle actually won that race. And I distinctly remember, and I was maybe 4 years old, but I distinctly remember when he finished the race, and in Victory Lane, he had a shard of the crash well stuck in the bead of his tire. And I thought, how cool. These guys are braver than brave. He slams the sidewall of his tire into the crash well. And I think that happened about halfway through the race. He just kept going, like it was nothing, and won the stupid thing. So I just thought that was the neatest thing ever. So, but like I said, my dad wasn't really into racing. We didn't have a lot of, finances. There was a quarter midget track in Ventura. We would go and watch, but even then, quarter midgets probably didn't cost that much money, but, I didn't feel like we had the finances to do that. But on and off, my brother was 3 years older than me. We horse traded and collected a bunch of stuff, dirt bikes, go-karts, but nothing was ever something that would be competitive in a racing environment. The go-kart we had was, about 10 years obsolete, but there was a go-kart track in the sand dunes in Oxnard, run by a guy named Ken Yagi, that they had track days, and I think it was $5 to run all day, and we would go out there and thrash that thing. And occasionally we'd get in pickup races with some of the guys. That was where some of the West Coast guys like Harlan Willis and Terry Farrar and George Ito that you might have seen on Thursday Night Thunder got their start. And I believe my brother and I both got in a couple of match races with one or the other of the Ito brothers. Just, pickup stuff, nothing official. But most of the racing was down around the LA area, Gardena, Ascot. We'd go down to Ascot and watch the sprint cars. It's just a historic shrine of a place. We'd go to Saugus and watch the stock cars. But eventually they started running stock cars at the old minor league baseball field at the Ventura Fairgrounds. It's called Babe Ruth Field. And they also had a couple of TQ races there, but that didn't really catch on. And that kind of sort of faded away. And then back in the 70s, when Speedway motorcycles started getting hot, they built a track inside the rodeo arena at the fairgrounds, which eventually became the Ventura Raceway that everybody knows, where they have Turkey Night every year now. And I'd go down there religiously and watch the Speedway bikes. And then they started running TQs. And I got to know some of the guys in the TQ field, and bought a chassis, started building the car, ended up pit crewing for a guy by the name of Jack Zimmerman out of Oakview, which is just inland from Ventura. First week after I helped him crew on the car, he called me up and he said, "Hey, we're every Wednesday we get together and my wife Linda cooks us dinner and we work on the car and bench race and get ready for next week." And he was sort of debriefing, about last week, how it went and things. And then he out of the blue just said, "So you're going to hot lap the car next week or not?" And I about fell out of my chair. I said, "Well, yeah." And so, I scrounged up, I think I had a helmet for my dirt bike racing, a Belt Star helmet, and I borrowed a fire suit from somebody that was about 5 sizes too big, and went to the track and talked about, the push-off procedure and all that other kind of stuff. And he said, if you want the car up, don't worry about it. That's the way it goes. Just have fun. So I went out there and I didn't set the world on fire, but it felt like I kind of halfway knew what I was doing. And he came in and he said, "Man, you're kind of a natural." And he said, "If I ever, get sick or can't make the show, I wouldn't have any qualms about putting you in the seat." And I said, "Well, where's that wheel hammer? I think I see a broken kneecap in your future." But that never came to be. But I ended up hot lapping the car several times at Ventura, in which he was giving up his practice time to let me go have fun, which I thought was really cool. And Jack was just that way. And then one day he said there was a race supposed to be at Ascot on the quarter mile. The half mile track was the main track, and there was a quarter mile in the infield where they ran the TQs and midgets and things like that. The figure 8 track was out of the quarter mile. He said, "I got invited to go to the Long Beach Grand Prix, and I'm not going to be able to, take the car down. Will you take the car down and get it unloaded and, wheel pack? And if I'm not there for hot laps, you can go ahead and hot lap the car." And it was a double header show with the Western States Midgets. It just so happened there were guys there like, Sleepy Trip and Robbie Flock and Bill Vukovich III, PJ Jones, Jack Haudenschild was there that night. And we all pushed out and wheel packed together with the midgets. And then the TQs went off. The midgets did their hot lap, and then we were supposed to do our hot lap session. So I'm out there with sons and grandsons of legends on the most famous racetrack on the West Coast, thinking I'm just died and gone to heaven. They flagged us off for so the midgets could hot lap, and Jack's standing there in the pits, and he said, "Man, I can see that grin on your face through the full face helmet." And I said, "You think you're getting me out of this car? You got another thing coming." And he said, "Yeah, go ahead." And another, again, I don't believe Jack had ever raced at Ascot, so he was giving up his practice time to let me live my dream. But then, life went on. My car, I never finished the car. Life got in the way. The TQ Jack decided to get out of it, and I didn't have a connection there. So that was kind of the end of the deal there. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and my wife and I, Adrian, who I call AJ, the able-bodied pit doll, came out for the 500 in 2006 and stayed with friends, and they showed us around. We sort of fell in love with the area, and enjoyed. That was the year that Sam Hornish beat Marco by fractions of an inch, and we were in a seat that the pass happened right directly in front of us. So came back home, really, enjoyed our stay there in Indiana. And then the bubble happened in 2008 and 2007 or whenever that was, when the real estate market crashed and people were getting laid off. And I'd been laid off many times because businesses were going away from California. And we were sitting there sort of having a morning devotional. And I said, I could be just as unemployed in Indiana, and we could probably find a house for cheap, way cheaper than we could find one here. And, we could move out and work on the house. So we had enough, savings so we could do that, still collect the unemployment. And, I could look for work once we get the house presentable. So that's what we did. We came out in 2009. We moved into a house that literally we paid less than $20,000 for. Took it down to the studs, put it back together. A year later, I found work where I'm working now with the Department of Defense, pretty good paying job. And I said, I always wanted to do this racing thing. There's racetracks all over, this part of the country. And she said, well, go for it. So I sort of did some research, cost benefit analysis sort of thing. What would be the best way for me to go? And if it's a sprint car or 360 sprint car, non-wing. I'm not really a wing guy, but I was looking at something non-wing, open wheel. Midgets, the Montpelier Midget series was going right then. It had been going for about a year or two. And I finally settled on the most economical way for me to get going was to buy a used Lightning Sprint and put that together and run it mainly with the Montpelier Midget series. And so that's what I started doing. Like you said, I think it was age 63, 2014, somewhere around in there is when I started doing that. And it's sort of just taken off from there. So to answer your question in a very long, rambling way, always wanted to do it, finally got the opportunity, and I figured you're never too old to start something. Don't give up on your dreams, basically. And it's led to some good things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So there's a lot for me to unpack there. Number one, sprint cars in tracks in California, and I say sprint car tracks, but dirt tracks in California that are there within view of the ocean. That's tough to beat. Number one.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Number two, you mentioned being 4 years old and having a recollection at the racetrack, and it makes me think I can remember something prior to this when I was probably 7 or 8, but something that really sticks out to me. I think I was like 11. I was at Limaland, and the All-Stars were there, and Jack Hewitt. It was. I don't know. I can't remember if it was the same year that he got injured real bad or if he was injured the year before. I think he was injured the year before, but at this point he had an eye patch on from the crash.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember they had drivers signing, and I had it's slipping my mind now. The racing newspaper. I can't think of what it's called right
Rolling
now.
Wheels or
no, it wasn't Rolling Wheels. Gosh dang it.
Speed Sport News?
It may have been a Speed Sport. Yeah. It was a Speed Sport. So that's all I had, and he's signing autographs. And so he signed it for me, and I still have that to this day. And in the feature, at this time there was no fence, and I don't know if it was all the way around the track or for 1 and 2. I can't remember that, but I remember distinctly he goes into 1 and 2 and he's out of the track. I have a memory prior to that, but that one really sticks out in my mind. And then you talk about coming here to the Midwest from California, which sprint car racing in California is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm biased. I grew up in Ohio. It's a really big deal here. So much so that guys from California will come here to race, or in your case, move to the Midwest. So you talked about that. how much did racing have, like, somewhat, like, I'm not going to tell her, but we're going to be in a really good spot for some good racing. That's also another reason why I want to move to Indiana.
No, in fact, I was straight up front with it. I didn't at the time. I didn't say, I want to move there and go racing. But she's always known my love for racing. We've been married 25 years. This past March, it'll be 26. This coming up March, and we've gone to Paris Auto Speedway for the sprint cars. We've gone to California Speedway for the Indy cars. We've done lots of that. We went to Supercross and just and Ventura Speedway a lot, but Red Ventura Raceway a lot because it's right there. So she's always known, and I sort of made it clear from the start. I said, I'm a racing guy, and if the opportunity comes up that I can race, I'd sure like to try it. So no, there was nothing. And I mean, the house we bought, where I'm sitting right now, we've got tickets to the Indy 500 every year. And on race day, we walk to the track. There's
nice.
Actually a gate on the side fence of what they call the North 40 parking lot that's midway through down the street of our neighborhood on the other side of the neighborhood. And we just walk across the neighborhood and walk through the gate and walk in, get our tickets, and go up to our seats. And then when the race is over, we wait until they kiss the bricks, and by then the crowd's dissipated enough to where we can get out, and we walk back, the way we came, and we're home, taking a cool off shower and getting ready for watching the replay on the television, and cars are still trickling out of our neighborhood, having parked there. So no, there was never any subterfuge or anything like that. I was very transparent with the fact that, heck, we went there first in 2006 to go to the Indy 500. So she knew what was up.
Yeah. That's a pretty good setup if you can walk back and forth and be in one of the meccas of the country as far as racing is concerned. And not to mention, we're talking about dirt racing, right? You're in a pretty good spot to hit quite a few dirt tracks as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can just about throw a rock to the dirt track at IMS, and I did do the BC 39 3 or 4 years ago, and circumstances haven't, allowed me to do it again. But if I do it again, I was thinking about calling Doug Bowles and say, hey, why don't we do a little piece where they push me off from my driveway, I drive through the back gate and into the pits. I think that would be pretty neat.
Idea. Yeah, I like it. That's a
But yeah, I mean, Kokomo, Paragon, Putnamville, Circle City is just on the other side of town. Bloomington, you just keep going and going and going. You work your way out, and everywhere you look, every direction you go, there's a dirt racetrack to race at. So it is pretty neat. And then unfortunately, that's sort of gone away in California, where a lot of the tracks have, like a lot of the tracks I mentioned, Ascot, Gardena, Culver City, Saugus. Ventura is about the only one standing in the Southern California. Then Paris is way down, in the way south, almost, past Riverside, and then you go up to Santa Maria and Bakersfield at the next tracks. So you got to kind of go. It's kind of a haul to get to the tracks nowadays, where they used to be, right there. But the cost of real estate, and the real estate becomes more expensive, or more valuable for housing and industry than it does for entertainment. And that's just kind of the fact of life.
Yeah. That makes me think, in the tracks you mentioned that are really within decent distance for you. You run with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets quite a bit, which we'll talk about. But if you had to pick a track that's fairly close to you that you would want to race at regularly, if you were going to pick one of them, is there one that would stand out to you?
Well, my favorite track, one of my favorite tracks is Montpelier, and maybe that's because I've just got a lot of time there. But it's a pretty big track. It's sort of deceptively large, and it's sort of bowl-shaped. It's got a curvature to the back straight, so you can just kind of hammer it. You can run a high groove, you can run a low groove. It can get character from time to time, but when the track is smooth and well prepared, you just, take her down to the corner and toss her sideways and nail the throttle and go wee, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's a little farther away than those close in tracks. I enjoy Circle City. Some of the guys don't care for it as much. It used to have a lot of rocks. They seem to be working those out gradually, but it's got a nice raciness to it. It's not too small. It's not too big. Jacob Boxell showed that you could run a D2 Midget over the cushion last year when he went from, was it 18th to first?
Yeah.
Went by me like I was standing still, and I should have followed him, but I didn't. But it's a racy little joint, and it can be a lot of fun. And but all the tracks have their good points. Paragon is a funky little paperclip where it's tighter at one end than the other. So you got to really work on getting the lines right at both ends of the track, and so it makes you think. And so yeah, there's really not a track out there that we currently race at that I don't enjoy. I like we're running at Lawrenceburg. It's big and it's fast, and I just kind of like that the ability to just tear into the corner and pick a spot where you're going to turn in and not really lift that much and just drive the thing. And so yeah.
So coming from California to the Midwest, what is there that you miss from California, and what is it that you love about the Midwest?
Well, there are times when we miss the weather. We actually, one of the things that we said when we moved out here was, there's basically two seasons in California. There's brush fire season and there's mudslide season. It doesn't get as cold here. It can get cold, and it gets snows in the foothills and whatnot, and then up into the Sierras. There's ski areas. You can go from the beach to the snow in a couple hours time. So that's sort of cool. And the weather's more temperate, which can be, enjoyable, but on the other hand, it can get boring. Ventura, right on the coast, people think, oh, it's all, Baywatch and, bikinis and stuff. But the reality is, when the weather warms up, the convection brings the moisture off the ocean, and it comes in as a fog bank, and it socks in the coast. And, you can wake up in the morning, 8 o'clock, and it's, the fog is all the way up to the foothills there, and it may burn off around 11 o'clock, or it may not. And they had this thing called June gloom, where they say, June is typically a very overcast month because of that phenomenon, but it can last May, June, July, some years. There are a lot of things that are enjoyable about it. I miss In-N-Out. I miss Pollo Loco. I miss real Mexican food, chili rellenos. You can't get a good chili relleno here anywhere. Even though there's a Hispanic population, it doesn't seem like they know how to cook the stuff that I like. But the Midwest, the pace of life is slower. The cost of living is definitely better. Like I said, we bought our house for less than $20,000. Now, it was a big time fixer-upper bank closure. But that same house on a similarly sized lot, if you can even find that size lot in California, in the condition it was in, would probably be $400,000. So that makes it difficult to own property.
Yeah.
So there's that.
That's crazy.
I do like the change of weather. It's been awfully cold for an awfully long time right now. So, but it's good, kind of fun to see the snow, and to see the leaves change. I mean, you go down around Nashville, Brownstown, that part of the state, and the fall colors are just spectacular. And you don't really get that sort of an effect unless you go way up into the mountains where it does get colder. So that's fun. There's a lot of entertainment here. Indianapolis is really a great city for concerts and sporting events. You know, everything Gainbridge Fieldhouse and the Lucas Oil Stadium and the ballpark where the Indians play is all right downtown. They've just built a couple of new auditoriums or arenas in Fishers and Noblesville where the Indy Fuel. In fact, we're going up to see an Indy Ignite women's volleyball game tomorrow night. Okay. Up in Fishers, and then Noblesville, they built an arena there for the Pacers G League team to play. So there's just a lot of opportunity here, and it's less crowded, and just seems like a friendlier place to me.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to do there. My brother lives outside of Indianapolis, so we get there a time or two every year and take in some things. Went to a Fuel game last year. Really nice arena, that area there that they built, and that I'm sure will continue to grow. You're right. There's quite a few things that you can do there in Indianapolis. So getting back to your racing, I understand a lot of times you show up to the track by yourself. How was trying to do all the work on the car and still hop in and race? How do you juggle that?
Well, it can be tough. You know, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of friends in the area that understand racing. I've tried to encourage some of the guys at church to come check it out, and coworkers and things like that. And a few have come to watch, but they, you know, racing, you know, Josh, racing is one of those things you either get it or you don't. Seems like, you know, there's that rare occasion where somebody will come and go, wow, this is really cool. Where's it been all my life? But the reality is that, you know, there are a lot of people that just don't understand racing. What's so fun about it? Watching cars go around and around in circles. Well, it's how they go around and around in circles, and it's not an exact circle every time, and you never know what's going to happen. So, so there's that. My wife AJ is, you know, when we started out, she was coming to the track pretty regularly and helping me out. She sort of gotten, you know, tapered that off to where she's only going to the tracks more local. And I understand that, you know, it's a long haul, and, you know, but she still helps me in the garage, and she helps me load the trailer up, you know, to get ready to go. And then, you know, I sort of roll in and I'm sort of at the mercy of, you know, asking guys for help. And sometimes I'm reluctant to do that, but I always manage to get somebody to help me out, you know, and I don't need a lot, you know, just mostly get me buckled in. I've got a ratchet seatbelt that I can't really reach myself, and so I need some help with that, and somebody to jump on the quad and get me out to push-off chute. Beyond that, unless somebody's willing or able and has the time, and, you know, I realize that these guys are, you know, there to watch their own friends race and things. Sometimes it's the grandfathers and fathers and brothers, you know, that help me, and I'm appreciative of everyone that does it. You know, I really can't do it without no help. With no help.
Right.
But I manage, you know, starting out, I had a fireproof cotton 4-layer, you know, Sparco suit that weighed about 5 pounds when I put it on, and probably weighed 15 pounds when I took it off, because I was soaked in sweat and, you know, just dealing with that. Now I've got a nice Hinchman suit that's a little bit more breathable, a little easier to get around in, and you know, I don't die from heat prostration. Plus, you know, I go to Pit Fit out here in India. That's a gym that's specifically tailored for motorsports drivers and pit crews. A lot of IndyCar drivers and Indy Next drivers work out there. Cody Swanson works out there. Justin Grant works out there. So, and I have, over the years, it seems like I've gotten in better shape instead of, you know, getting more old and more decrepit. I've gotten in better shape and got more stamina and more resistance to the heat as I've gone along. So I'm thankful for Jim Leo there at Pit Fit for helping me with that and keeping me from falling out of the seat or, you know, collapsing in the trailer. But, you know, most nights I try to make sure that the car is as prepped as it can be before it rolls into the trailer. All of my setups are good. I've got my stagger choices, you know, laid out in the rack, and you know, I can just roll down the ramp and do my, you know, pre-race prep. There has been a buddy of mine, Jason Schaefer, who's got his own race car, but he's had issues with keeping it running and getting it, to run a full season. And when he's not had his car at the pits, he's been really good about helping me out and really, really helping. He's a guy that knows, before I even ask, do we need to change a tire? Do we need to change stagger? Do we need to change gear? He's right in there doing it, and that takes a lot of the burden off of me. So props to Jason for helping me there. I'm, sort of looking forward to him not helping me this year because I hope he can get his car going and he can have his own fun with his own car. But, I've been thinking about maybe putting out there on Facebook, offering somebody, to help me more on a regular basis and maybe pay their pit pass or something like that. Don't quote me, guys. I haven't made up my mind yet, but if anybody's out there wants to give me a hand, it would be greatly appreciated. But I manage, like I say, with help that I can get, and really, all I really need is that, buckling in and getting pushed out and getting pushed back out once the race is over kind of stuff. Most of the stuff that's in the pits doing the, and I may not, there may be some nights where I might want to make a change and I just don't have the time or the, I need to sit there and recover from the heat race or whatever. But I'm not out there to win a championship. I'm not out there to set the world on fire. I'm just out there to race and have fun. And so if I don't get the exact right setup on it, it's not the end of the world. I'd like to be able to, but there's times when it's just not in the cards, given my situation. I'm just happy and blessed to be out there racing, especially at my age, and racing with a bunch of guys that are younger than me and treat me like I'm one of them. So it's just an absolute blessing to do that. And and also, when my car's not at the track, I try to go to the track myself and be a help as much as I can. I want to be a good steward, a good servant. And I think that's, almost a ministry for me. I feel like the God's blessed me to be able to do this. And I feel like it's the least I can do to give to others what, they're willing to give to me. And that's just the way. Another thing that I enjoy about this club too is everybody in the club is just, they're just super people and they'll give you the shirt off their back. And if you bend a front axle in a wreck, you've got 5-6 guys at your pit, throwing wrenches and grabbing stuff out of their trailer to get you back out. So that's just the way it is with the racing family, it seems like, and especially with Midwest Thunder, that's just a great bunch of guys.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on that because I was hoping to get to that. You talked about sometimes you don't have the help, but if you need help, you could probably find help, especially running with those guys. I've been around that series. I try to take in races for those guys when I can, and you could tell, like, it's like everybody back there in the pits when they're racing together, there's obviously competition, right? But everybody's going to help everybody out. If something, like you mentioned, if something happens where you need something fixed, you're going to have a bunch of guys coming over trying to help you get out there on the track. It doesn't matter who it is. And that's something really cool about the series and something, I appreciate what they do in the camaraderie between everybody in the series, and the fact that the series really tries to make sure that if there's guys out there that want to race, they have the ability to race. And I've said it before, and I'll say it probably more times than anybody wants to hear, but they also put together a really good schedule every year.
Yeah, it's the schedule has come out earlier this year than it ever has because the racetracks seem to be, and Greg touched that on your monthly podcast with him, that they're anxious to get the schedule out nowadays. And so I think we've still got maybe 3 TBAs if that, and we kind of know where they are. It's just that the tracks haven't announced yet, and so Greg feels it obligated to hold off until they make the official announcements. But yeah, it's a good mix of tracks between Indiana and Ohio, and there's not a clunker in the bunch. It's just the tracks are first class, the promoters are top notch, and the racing. If you didn't know, if you didn't have a national midget sitting there to compare, the quality of racing we put on is just as close. We may not throw the slide or dive, slide jobs at each other, and we're sort of encouraged not to, because we want to all go home with our cars in one piece. We're not Keith Coons or Chad Boat, where we can afford to, just grab another chassis out of the stacker and run next week. We've got low budgets and limited spares, and nobody wants to tear their stuff up. It's going to happen from time to time. Racing things happen, but we try to race clean, and we, try to make it a point if somebody comes in and with a little bit of bravado and a chip on their shoulder, somebody's going to take them aside and, hey, look, that's not how we play here. If you want to race that way, maybe go somewhere else, because, and I think, that gives the kids coming up a chance to work on their racecraft, and not tear equipment up, and gives us older guys a chance to be competitive and not worry about somebody coming from 3 rows up and throwing a bonsai move on us and wiping us out and having us sit in the garage for 3 weeks. So it's a good bunch. We've got a good schedule. We've got a bunch of great guys and gals in the series, racing, families, officiating is just all the way up and down the line. You couldn't ask for a better bunch to race with.
Yeah, very well said. So moving on to the Screaming Yellow Zonker. I'm not sure what this is, but I'm hoping that you will enlighten us.
Yeah, well, you see cars with nicknames in drag racing a lot. You've seen cars in oval track racing too. I don't know if it was a thing here or in Pennsylvania or anything like that so much, but I know Jan Opperman had a name for one of his cars, and I'm not going to repeat here. But it seemed like back home, one thing is everybody wanted their cars to look good, and another thing is that a lot of them seem to have nicknames. And the Screaming Yellow Zonker, I guess I've always liked yellow cars, and one of the first street cars I had was a 1972 Honda 600 Coupe. Now, this was before the Civic. This was a 2-cylinder 600cc air-cooled engine that looked like it came out of a Honda 360 Scrambler, in a little yellow envelope body that was about the size of the original Mini, 10-inch wheels, and it was bright yellow. Well, I called that Sunshine. And Jim Naylor, in fact, the promoter at Ventura Raceway, had a pinstriping and graphics business back then. I think he still does like vinyl graphics now, but he used to. Back in the day, the big thing was van conversions. Back in the 70s, and where you take a box van and give it this crazy wild paint job, put portholes in the back, and fur carpeting, and that's where this truck is knocking. Don't bother knocking came from, and he did. That's one of the things he did. He did van conversions, but he also did pinstriping. And he pinstriped that car, full on pinstripe job. The wheel arches, the character lines, the whole thing. In about a half an hour for $35 in 1972. That's what you could get, your car pinstripe for. So like I said, I've always liked the yellow cars, and when I got my Lightning Sprint and then on up through the midgets that I've had, I painted them all mostly yellow. And the Screaming Yellow Zonker came from back in the 70s. There was a snack food called Screaming Yellow Zonkers. I think it was like kettle corn, if I remember right. But it was like bright yellow, probably, yellow dye number 8 that was highly carcinogenic or something. But I sort of like that name, the name of the snack. And then one of my favorite comic strips back in the 70s was Doonesbury. And one of the characters in the Doonesbury is named Zonker Harris. and he was kind of a pothead, and but the name Zonker has just always been something that's just kind of stuck in my head, and so I just felt like, and I've always named my cars, like I said, my Honda was Sunshine. I've got a Chevy Colorado name now that I've named Rocky, and my trailer's Bullwinkle. So, everything's got a name. Everything's got a name. So,
Yeah.
So Zonker is what, I decided on for the race car. If I ever don't paint it yellow, I think it's still going to be the Zonker. It just might not be the Screaming Yellow Zonker. But another thing too is the number on the car, number 97, is actually a tribute to Parnelli. Now he's most famous for number 98 because that's the number that he ran, Ajanian ran on the car when he won Indy, and he raced for years with number 98. But he also, back in the early days, back in the Jalopy days, he had a Jalopy that was number 97. And then when he moved up to the super modified Savel's Ford T-Bird modified that he ran, was a yellow 97. So it was a pale yellow and it had red numbers. So the numbering or the lettering isn't exactly the same as mine, but when it came time for me to decide on a number, I just decided that would be a less obvious tribute to Parnelli than a 98 would be. So
nice.
That's the story of the Screaming Yellow Zonker.
I like that. And I will tell you, I think there's a lot of names out there. I think it's something that follows, whether you want to say motorsports or car enthusiast or whatever the case is. But I think there's a lot of names back in the pits. I just don't think it's as put out there, perhaps, as it should be. And I think sometimes, because like you had mentioned, some of the names probably can't be put out there.
Right.
So in 2025, you raced in Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a favorite track that you've raced at? And is there a track that you have not raced at that you would like to hit?
Well, we sort of touched on the favorite part already. Lawrenceburg is a good track I like. Montpelier, I like Moeller, and maybe we'll talk about my little event there with the heat race at Moeller. Maybe that's one of the reasons I like it so much, because it's fast, it's racy, it's almost always smooth, and just a fun track to. I'm not a fan of the tractor tires there. Those tractor tires seem to reach out and bite a lot of race cars. But other than that, it just seems to suit our cars. And I think we put on a good show there. Bucket list, Angel Park in Wisconsin was a bucket list track of mine, but I made the trip up there twice this past year. If there's an off week or a rain out, knock on wood, I hope we don't have as many rain outs as we had last year. Yeah. But that gave me the opportunity to go, to visit some other tracks. So Lincoln, that's a track I'd been to before when I had my lightning sprint, but I hadn't been there in a while. And that's a fun track. It's got a real different dark black clay surface. And it's got a berm, no tractor tires. So I really like that. And then I went to Peoria, which was almost a fighter jets in a gymnasium sort of a feel. It's just a bowl where you just, it's hard for you to even remember what corner you're in, it seems like. And then Angel Park is flat and wide. It's a third of a mile, and it's almost a circle the way you run it, the line that you run there. Beautiful, beautiful setting in a park. With surrounded by trees and just a really cool place. As far as a track that I haven't been to yet that I'd like to go to, I don't know. Maybe something further east, maybe like one of the Pennsylvania tracks, I don't know. We'll see. Like I said, Angel Park was the one that I really hadn't been to yet, that I've already ticked off. So I guess I'll have to make another bucket list.
Hey, there's always time. So we talked about you go ahead and mention it, and we'll go ahead and dive into it. You want to talk about that heat race at Moeller?
Sure. I'm not sure what got into me. I had a decent qualifying run. I think there was actually a mix-up on the lineup that put me outside front row. But I'll take what I'm given. I didn't go up there intentionally to steal somebody's spot, but I was given the lineup that I'm outside front row. I said, okay, well, okay. And we got the green, and I think Jimmy Guidry was on pole, and I managed to get him at the start, and I just started running a line about a half a car width off the pole, and it was working good. And I was just telling myself, get the car in deep, set the car, pick up the throttle, hit your marks. I was just telling myself every lap, don't let up, don't let up, don't let up. And I kept seeing a wheel out of my peripheral vision on the inside of me. I think originally it was Jimmy, and then Tyler Nelson came up, and I could tell I saw a little flash of pink, and I thought, well, that's Tyler, and he's a hot shoe. He ended up winning our series championship this year. And he's got a good car. He's got that Link chassis. He's got, Mike Hull doing his wrenches, and Honda motor that's, got some grunt. I'm still working on finding horsepower in my car. That's one of the things I need to work on this year. But I managed to hold him off, and I was just focusing on just hitting my marks and getting off the corner. And he would fade out of my vision again. And then and then there was a yellow about 5 laps in. And I thought, oh, here we go. This is the first laps I've ever led, Josh, in anything, in any heat race or anything. I had not led a lap, and I've led 5 laps now in this heat race, and there's hot shoes behind me. And so I'm trying to strategize what I'm going to do on the start so he doesn't get me, and I bring it down and manage to get a good start, and I knock off 2 more laps. And then I got to thinking, and that was probably my downfall. I thought, well, he's going to try something this last lap, so I'm going to go to the bottom and protect. And no sooner did I do this than I hear his exhaust around the outside, and he gets me coming off the corner. And I, 2020 hindsight, I coulda, shoulda, woulda, but I tried to stay in his, wake and try to, see if I could pull something off, but it just didn't happen. And I ended up about probably 2 lengths behind him at the checker, but I got a second place out of it. And, to date, that's absolutely the best race I've ever run. I wasn't able to replicate that exactly. I've had some good races this year, but nothing compares to that, And then I get out of the car and they say, well, you got to go to the pill draw. It's a pill draw. What's that? Of course, I knew what a pill draw was, but I'd never been in one. And so, when we have a 3-heat format, the top 3 go to the draw, and somebody's going to get the 9. Tyler actually was going, I hate pill draw. I always get an 8 or a 9. And he had somebody else. I think he had Jack Lux, Matt's son, draw for him, and he drew a 7 or an 8. And I go up there and I pull out the 1.
Yeah.
Like, what's the big deal? Doesn't this happen all the time? Right. Unfortunately, my luck didn't hold for the rest of the night. The thing about Moeller is I don't remember them ever reworking the track once hot laps are done. Once the initial prep is done, they may go out and roll a little bit or spritz a little bit, but I've never seen them do a complete rework. And we're already told, push out, we're getting ready, and then we're sitting in our cars at the chute, and I hear heavy equipment, and I said, what's going on? I said, well, they're reworking the track. And I got to set up in the car for dry slick, and it's going to be probably sloppy wet instead. And at that point, it's a pretty major thing the way my front end is set up to take turns out of the front end. Jason was there helping me that night, I think, but there just wasn't time. So I did the best I could to adjust the shocks, and starting on pole, Bryce Bassingill's on my outside, and we get the green, and I stay in the top 3 or 4, through turns 1 and 2, and then I went to put the throttle down, and the wheels just spun, and I had absolutely no forward bite, and I just got swallowed up and ended up 13th. But I still got a lead lap finish, which was one of several that I got this season. So I couldn't complain. I couldn't complain at all with the way the heat race went, and just absolute highlight of my career so far.
Yeah, good heat race, and then the one in the pill drill. I mean, you can't complain about that. But
no, absolutely not.
You ran 16 events in 2025, that being one of them there at Muller, 11 with the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets, and made 12 features with an average start of 16.8 and an average finish of 12.9. Transferred out of every USAC Midwest Thunder Midget B main that you would end up in, which was a career first for you.
I never transferred out of a B ever, and I did it. What'd you say? 3 times, or every
time you were in the B. Yep.
Right.
And 3 top 10s overall, and you ended up 11th in points with USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets. So really, something to build on. I mean, it sounds like a pretty solid season to me.
I've gotten back when we were still running as like a mixed show with the Montpelier Midgets, and we were scoring our points independently. I think I ended up 7th in points, but it was a different ball game back then. We didn't have as big of a car count. We didn't have the quality of cars that we've got now. But when I converted from Lightning Sprint over to Midget first year, we were at Gas City, which I sure hope Gas City comes back one day. I just miss that track, and it's a shame that nobody's the circumstances that are surrounding the ownership and things like that. I just hope that works out in favor of having a racetrack there at some point in time. Racetracks will come back, Millstream's come back, Mansfield's coming back, so it can happen. So keep praying for that. But I went off the lip in turn 1 and did about a 2.5 somersault with a twist and landed nose first on the last hit and broke my collarbone. And after that, the comeback was a little bit tentative, still recovering from it, and and took me a while to get my feet back under me and get going. But I was struggling in the car, just finding my marks and staying out of people's way and things like that. And I thought, I need to do something about this. And Corey Kruzman, who was one of those guys that came out from the West Coast to run in the Midwest, and I think he won Indiana Sprint Week 2 years and raced for Tony Stewart. And he started a sprint car school as his career was winding down, and they added midgets to the menu a couple of years before this. And I thought, I'm going to go back home and just to get some seat time, and maybe Corey can help me with a few tips and things. And so I made the decision to go out there right around Turkey Night. So I was able to go see Turkey Night at Ventura, which is something that I hadn't been to yet. They hadn't run Turkey Night at Ventura until we left Ventura. I have been to Turkey Night at other places, but not there. And that was a big help. I think I did 45 laps or something, and the last 2 sessions were in a 360 sprint car, because he said, I think there's some things I can show you that on this track with these conditions that I can't replicate in the midget. And so went out in the 360 sprint car and got some really good laps, and just, being out there by myself, uninterrupted, because hot laps, what do you get? 3-4 laps tops, and you're still with cars, and so there's still the chance of, coming up on somebody or somebody coming up on you. And, but to just be out there by yourself, clicking off laps and trying different things and focusing and trying to just learn to get better, was a big help to me. And I ended up coming back, and it's not often I get to run the full season. And that next year, 2022, I think it was, ran the full season and ended up 10th in points and got most improved driver. So I think the trip was worthwhile. People complimented me on my improved driving. And of course, at the end of the year, last race back at Gas City again, I took it out of the park in turn 3 to end the year. But I'd already, I guess, showed that I had improved. So from there, it's been sort of up and down. Like I said, didn't race full seasons the last 2 years before this year. And probably would have made every race this year, even if it hadn't been for the rainouts. I think I was ready early enough, but I tried to make a concerted effort to get there, improve and work on getting better. And it's one of the reasons I went to the other tracks too when we were rained out, and tracks in Wisconsin and Illinois weren't. To get seat time and to work on the car, to work on getting the car better, because there was still some bugs I was trying to work out. But one race that I didn't make was Lawrenceburg, and I blew a tire on my trailer, but I decided to go down there anyway to see if I could help out. And then I ended up having another little highlight, was that Christian Dunn, who's our announcer, said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just helping out when I can, like I usually do. And he said, well, Bella's not here to help me in the booth, so you're coming with me. And so I ended up going up and doing color commentary, and I guess that got some good reviews too, because people said I was doing really good there. And I was just talking just like we are now, just having a chat with Christian, and he was throwing me softballs, asking me questions. And that I was able to field rather easily, but I had a ball. And so maybe that's something that, when I do hang up the helmet, that I might look into doing a little more, because it was a good time.
Nice. Yeah. I don't know if I was actually there or if I was watching it, one of the two, but I recall that night. I do remember hearing you on the microphone with Christian. That was good stuff.
Well, you must have been there, because I don't think it was on Flow. We weren't
right.
with the USAC shows, so you must have been there. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Hey, you had some spare time, and he needed a hand, so it all worked out for everybody.
Yep.
So you talked about 2025. You talked about the USAC Midwest Thunder Midgets. What does 2026 look like for Jim Jones Racing?
Well, probably more of the same. I do have some things I want to do to the motor. Early in the year, I was having issues with the fueling, and I took my car to Pete Cozzolino here in Indy to get it on the dyno to see. And it's the first time I'd ever had the car on the dyno. I've just been using other people's settings, to run. And I feel like most of the time I have good success, but there's been times when just, things have felt a little off and I haven't been able to diagnose it. I'm not the expert on fueling that maybe some people are, but I took it to Pete and found 50 horsepower. Because some of the jetting was off, some of the pill settings, the spring settings on the pills, the bypasses were off. And so we got that dialed in, and he said you could probably find some more horsepower there if you make some other little tweaks, within the rules, of course. And so I'm looking at doing that when I get back out in the garage, and first thing I need to do is leak the motor down and see if it's, needs a rebuild. If not, then I'm going to just do the changes that he suggested and see where we go. So I hope that I can have a little bit more reliable fueling package, and that I have fewer issues with that. And if I can find more horsepower, that's one of the things that I didn't know I was down as much horsepower as I was, because there was no baseline.
Sure.
But it's nice to know that maybe a couple of the tenths of the 4 or 5 tenths that I'm off, from quick time might not be me. And when the car runs better, it's a lot easier to drive, so you can focus on running your line and picking up the throttle when it needs to be picked up. And that's one of the things that was happening. You'd go into the turn and I'd let off, and when I go to pick the throttle up, it would just sort of stutter and stumble, and then you lose a tenth of a second right there. Guys are driving away from you when you're supposed to be, digging out of the turn. So I'm hoping to get some of that cured more, and just work on being more consistent, being better with my, steering inputs and my throttle inputs and my braking, and work on improving my finishes, and maybe not even have to worry about transferring out of a B and getting more, transfers out of the heats, maybe a couple of wins. Be nice to have some heat wins. Be nice to have a main event win. Who knows what might happen. But just I'm working on improving and working on being consistent and showing up, and hopefully putting on a good show for the crowd, and being a part of a great club, and working, racing away from the club if it warrants it, but focusing mostly on, I wouldn't drop a date that we're running to go run somewhere else, but I would certainly, entertain opportunities to race at a different track if the rain gods don't cooperate. And there are some weekends that we're not racing that I've already looked and see that, Badger Midget has got some shows, and I might, depending on how things are going, you take the weekend off or go race somewhere else and, have some more fun.
So plan on running the full USAC Midwest Thunder Midget.
That's the plan. Yeah, that's the plan, is to try to run the full season and trying to make top 10 or deep in the top 10, maybe top 5 if I can swing it. You never know.
Nice.
Like I said, if I can work on getting my car better, maybe that'll help me to get better finishes and make a better showing of points.
Well, I mean, if you've already found 50 and it sounds like you can find some more, like you said, that's a big deal. And it's a big deal when you're running with those guys, like good competition there, right? And you're seeing guys come through the USAC Midwest Thunder Midget Series, and then they're going on.
Oh, yeah.
The series is very competitive. The top in points, there's always top 5 or just neck and neck for most of the season and into the end. And then you're helping produce some kids for the future and run a national series. So something if you can be competitive with them.
The last 2 years, I think the top 3, it went down to the last race. Third place could have been champion, at any given time, given the circumstances. And you mentioned, Jacob Denny, he's been in the national series for 3 or 4 years now, and just, winning multiple races. Zach Weigel moved up, and won the Fireman's Nationals, in his rookie year, got Rookie of the Year in USAC. And, he's had sponsorship issues that prevented him from doing a full season last year, but I understand that he might be looking at running with the O'Donnell team, maybe full season this year. He got that ride. He ran it at the Chili Bowl, and look at how many guys in our club were at the Chili Bowl, and not only at the Chili Bowl, but, winning races. Zach won a heat in his preliminary night. JB won a heat in his preliminary night. Matt Lux acquitted himself well. Parker Perry, is it? I think that ran for Steve Gresham in a D2 midget, acquitted himself extremely well, in that competition. So, it's, JB, I don't want to say JB's a surprise to me, but just to see him take to the national midgets so well last year and just really run with those guys, and sometimes time quicker than KTJ in the same equipment. That's just amazing, and clearly he's got talent. I mean, that race at Circle City, I'll go back to that. I mean, you're not supposed to be able to do what he did in a D2, run above the cushion and pass cars that are huggy pole in the line, because that's the line that ends up being the only way to go at Circle City, because, well, you can't go above the cushion. Well, JB sort of proved that all wrong. So who knows what's going to happen at Circle City this year? Maybe everybody will be above the cushion. So, he's just been lights out the last year or so, and he did a really great job and came within, what was it, 1500ths of making the Saturday night A. That's just incredible, and it's got to be heartbreaking for him. But on the other hand, what a heck of a job that he did, to get that close and to show out like that with the best midget racers in the world, trying to do the same exact thing. There were guys that, that Michael Pickens went back to New Zealand because he tore his car up and didn't want to run the alphabet soup, and, credit to him, he probably didn't have a chance, to make the A, but Michael Pickens is a multi-time New Zealand national champion, and he's done fantastically well in the United States. He's on par with the best of them, and he couldn't make the show. And JB darn near made the show his first try. And Zach Weigel, improved from his last year's showing. Abby Holbein and you're forgetting some of the guys that were out there, but they show, and when they race on the national scene, what a good crop of drivers the Midwest Thunder Midgets can produce. So it's really cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think 11 drivers, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So,
speaks about the competition with that series. It's fun to watch. Always an awesome schedule. Really good racing. You spoke to that. And one thing I wanted to touch on before we get to the fun stuff, the stuff I like to do with drivers before we wrap up, is Greg had talked about moving some tech as far as sealing the motors. Do you have a thought about that?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Sorry, I'm looking at flipping my cheat sheets over here. I think it's a good move. One of the things that people, if there's a rub, people say, well, people who race in the series shouldn't tech other cars, and you heard that in the shootout where that kid got DQ'd for not having a stock motor, and people were saying, well, he got failed because somebody else was in the race to tech the motor. Well, it looked like he had illegal stuff in the car, so so there's that. But and even you go to IndyCar, and there was kind of a scandal about the Penske teams having some funny stuff going on with their rear wings and gotten sent to the tail of the field, for not passing tech. And they're saying, well, Penske shouldn't be teching Penske. And so now they have developed an independent board to oversee the tech side of it. And, we can't go that far, but I think it's a good move as much as you can do to get the onus of cheating off the books, whether they cheat or not. I have ultimate trust and faith in Chuck and Greg and all of the guys, that have done tech. Hats off to them. It's a dirty job, and somebody's got to do it, and we don't have paid staff, to do that kind of thing. Although they're looking into trying to come up with that, and we've got, as the club has grown, we've apparently had better resources, with things the way they're going. We've been able to get the interns in, like Abby or Audrey, and the gang from Uno, and having a full-time announcer and that kind of thing. So it's just another step in making the club, legitimizing the club and making it more professional. And the idea of, taking everything to Chuck and having them seal the motors beginning of the season is a step in the right direction too. If everybody, does that, then that just eliminates another potential problem at the end of the night. So, and it, speeds things up so people can load their cars up and, crack a cold one and bench race. So I'm fully in favor of that.
Good deal there. So, all right, I like to do this, especially with the drivers. Fun to get to know you a little bit away from the racetrack, if you will. So I got some lightning round questions for you. I got 10 questions. I'm going to ask you and try to get some answers out of you as quickly as we can. So, question number 1, celebrity crush growing up.
Well, this probably isn't growing up so much, but Terry Garr in Young Frankenstein.
Okay.
Yeah, she just maybe back earlier. I don't know. Maybe it's somebody like Barbara Feldon in Get Smart. When I was more of a kid, I was more grown up when Young Frankenstein came out. But or maybe Diana Rigg in the Avengers. It's kind of a theme there. They're both brunettes and they're both in spy shows, so there may be something to that. I don't know.
Favorite cartoon?
Either Looney Tunes, doesn't matter, Bugs Bunny, Daffy, Sylvester, any of those, or Rocky and Bullwinkle, oddly enough.
Okay, all right.
The names of my truck and my trailer.
I like it. Some guys have an answer for this, some guys don't. Do you have a favorite pro wrestler?
I've never been a huge wrestling fan, but I kind of like John Cena. Some of the I don't know if I've ever actually watched, a WrestleMania all the way through or something, but I've seen the commercials and, he's got that persona, maybe The Rock. And of course, those two guys are supposed to hate each other. So, you can't like them both. Right. But, never been a big wrestling fan. Even back in the day, back in LA, Channel 5 again, that they did jalopy racing and then they did pro wrestling and they did roller derby. And I knew the only one that was a real sport was the jalopies, because you could pretty much tell that they were not really wrestling, not really flipping guys out of the
definitely
track
planned out.
Rink. Yeah, so I know it's a big deal, and I know a lot of people love it, but never been one of my deals.
Oh yeah, I mean, I asked the question because I'm a fan, right? I've been a fan since I was a kid. I actually had a buddy that did it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Ended up in the ER a few times. Ended up having to get surgery.
Yeah, I mean, I say it's not real, but they really do come off the ropes and land on, and you've got to know how to do that and not kill yourself or kill the guy that you're supposed to be, fighting. So there's a certain amount of skill to it.
Yeah, planned out, definitely.
Yeah. Choreographed skill.
Yes. Do you have a favorite song?
Secular song, I think Sweet Judy Blue Eyes by Crosby, Stills and Nash. And on the Christian side is a song called The Goodness of God that just about makes me cry every time I sing it. So, yeah.
Very good. Giving us 2. I like it. Do you have a favorite movie?
Well, Young Frankenstein or The Princess Bride. I like funny.
There was a pro wrestler in The Princess Bride.
That's true, Andre the Giant. So maybe that should have been my favorite wrestler. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, Fezzik.
Now, you like to race. So sometimes, again, this goes with the wrestling question. Some guys have a spot, some guys don't because they're typically racing instead of vacation. So do you have a favorite vacation spot?
Well, I haven't taken a lot of vacations recently. I did go back, like I said, to California, and I did, to Turkey Night. And when you gave me a little heads up on what these questions would be, I sort of automatically went to the Tulsa Expo Center because for me, I haven't done it yet. It's been more of a vacation than it has been. It's not exactly like a resort in Cancun, but it's a good time. It's a party, and it's 6 days of racing. How can you not like that?
I hear you. Next question, and you might have already touched on this, but something few people know about you.
Well, I am a decent singer. I did some stint on the worship team back in California. So I guess there's that. I kind of have this baritone voice, so sort of goes, but I don't think many people have actually heard me, sing. I don't spend a lot of time singing in the pits or anything, so I can if anybody asks. Throws a quarter in my helmet or something.
I feel like if there's a chance that you end up on the mic again next year, somebody's gonna have to tag this so we can remember in 2026.
Christian might be the one.
You could do the anthem. You could do the anthem.
Well, there's that. I could do the anthem, but I'm not going to do it all frilly like some of these people think they want to make it their own. I'm going to sing it straight down the line like it's supposed to be.
I like it. If you could own one car, you come home from work, you hit the garage door opener, and the car that you want to drive down the road when the weather's perfect is sitting in the garage, what is that car?
So I'm not talking about a Link chassis with a TRD motor in it here. We're talking actually a street car.
I mean, you can have that too.
Yeah, well, but the car I would pick probably wouldn't pull it. I don't know if you know what this is, but a C-type Jaguar, which is a sports car from the early 50s.
Okay.
Just a beautiful.
Was it ever in a Bond movie?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Look up C-type Jag. They won Le Mans a couple of years, and then they came out with the D-Jag, which won Le Mans several years, which was a little more modern looking. But this was their first attempt at kind of doing a little bit of streamlining, taking the separate fenders off and smoothing it all in. And to me, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous car.
It's funny that you mentioned the C-type Jaguar because now I had to refresh my memory, but earlier before the weather got crappy here in Ohio, I was driving down the road and there was a C-type Jaguar. The guy had like goggles on. He was driving down the road.
Yeah.
If I remember right, it was painted white and it had like a round number on the side on the door, like it was a race car. He was driving it down the road.
Yeah, traditionalists would have to be British Racing Green, but I could picture in America there being a white C-Jag. That's pretty cool.
And I didn't know it at the time, but I was like,
yeah, it's pretty cool to see something like that on the street and you don't really expect it. I was driving home from Speedway. We live just north of the Speedway, but we're not officially in Speedway, but we're a block away from the city limit. But I was driving up through some of the residential streets coming from Crawfordsville Road up to 25th Street. And as I'm going north, coming south is this car. What is that? Is it an MGA? Well, no, it's got a number painted on the grill. This is number 54. 54. That's a Novi. That's an Indy car. And as it gets closer to me, I see this guy in a powder blue business suit with black hair blowing in the wind, and it's Doug Bowles, the president of the Speedway, taking one of the museum cars out for a jaunt. What a cool job is that? That's got to be the coolest job in the world. Yeah. And I give him a wave, and he gives him a wave. He gets this big smile on his face, and he rollers by, and it's what it was called the Winfield Special, and it was the original car that had what eventually became the Novi engine. And Ed Winfield designed this engine. It's V8 twin cam, gear-driven, supercharged, and that thing never won Indy, but it was a crowd favorite from like 1949 to 1965 because it gave out this god-awful shriek when it ran, and everybody just loved it because it was something other than an offie. But the Winfield was the first car that it was put in, and it wasn't called the Novi then. It became the Novi, the next car that it went in. But to see the president of the world's most famous racetrack, a block and a half away from the world's most famous racetrack, in a car that's supposed to be sitting in the museum, just having the time of his life. I'm sure he didn't sneak it out. I'm sure it was, an authorized trip. But how cool is that? And how cool is it to live someplace close enough where you get to experience that? And most of the people in the neighborhood are probably going, "What's that racket? What is it? What is that crazy guy in the blue suit doing in that old beat up car?" So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I got to be honest. Going back to your the car you'd like in the garage, I would have had no clue that was a C-type Jaguar. I was like, "What is that?" And obviously there were some giveaways, but I'm like, I don't know exactly. I got to look this up. And that's the only reason I know what it is because I was just so taken back. I had never seen that car on the road ever anywhere.
They're very rare. I don't know how many of them they made, but they weren't made, specifically to go on the road. They were made to race, and I think they built a few road going examples. And there are some replicas out there, but Jaguar, I believe they may even held some sort of a patent or copyright on the body shape, and they don't let just anybody pop a mold and build a fiberglass version of it because they don't want to, it's like sacrilege, it's just not proper British, behavior. So, that's pretty cool.
I got 2 more questions for you in the lightning round that has definitely not.
That turned out to be not so lightning, did it, Josh? Sort of slowed down on that.
The next one is, do you have a go-to meal?
Oh, got to be a ribeye, charred, nice garlic mashed potatoes, maybe some green beans or something like that, or a salad. But got to be the steak and the potatoes specifically. I want some sourdough bread, some real sourdough bread from California, because that's another thing I miss is honest to God sourdough bread, like from San Francisco, where they know how to make it.
Okay. All right. Good to know. You got the meal planned out. So last one, do you have a funny story you can share either from the track, from the shop, or on your way to the track or the shop?
Well, the first time I took my Lightning Sprint to Montpelier to race, I forgot my fire suit. And luckily, I'd already gotten to know Greg Watson and Alex. Hadn't met John yet, but Alex was there racing and Greg was there. And just so happened, I don't know why, but he had his fire suit from when he ran dwarf cars in the trailer, and it was fit me well enough that I could run it. But it was this garish purple and black flame thing. I just, luckily you don't see too much of it in the car, but there is photographic evidence of me in that suit in the original Yellow Zonker Lightning Sprint. But another thing I would say, not a funny story necessarily, but if you want to have a good laugh, go look at the TikToks that Bella Hall has put together for the Midwest Thunders. She's been labeled the media director for MTM, and just about every weekend, every time we raced, she would go through the pits with a cameraman in tow and do these quickie little TikToks, and they're hilarious. You get to see the personality of the guys, and Bella's personality and her wittiness at doing the interviews. And some of the answers is just bust me up. It's just the funnest thing. And I'm sure she's going to do more of that this year. And I say, stay tuned, because, you talk about it, talking about a great bunch of guys, there are a bunch of cut-ups, from Dustin Trost or Dylan Trost to Matt Lux to Luke Hall, from young to old. It seems like not only are they all good racers, but they all got just wicked senses of humor, and it's just a fun watch. So I would say go out, look for the MTM Midwest Thunder TikToks, and just prepared for a good laugh.
Definitely. as we're getting ready to wrap this up, where can everybody follow you on social media? Do you have any merchandise available and sponsors that you would like to thank?
Well, I've got, there's my Facebook page, which is just James Jones, and I'm trying to figure out a way to change that to Jim because, it is more, who I am. Then I post a lot of my, my Zonker diaries and things like that on there. But then I've also got a web page called Jim Jones Motorsports that I really haven't been keeping up on, and maybe I ought to put more of my racing content over there so it's a worthwhile look. Merchandise, I do have some shirts. Just so happens, some coincidence, I brought one out. This is a kid's size. That's all I've got right now.
Oh, nice.
But the cool thing about these is they're direct to garment print, so they don't have to print them off in batches of 50. I can get a one-off, and order them so anybody wants anything, and I can do a big image on the front, or a little image like pocket image on the front and a big image on the back, short sleeve, long sleeve.
Nice.
They're not the most inexpensive shirts, but they're good quality, and that's what I've got there. And then another thing we didn't really talk about was when I was up in the booth and we started talking about nicknames for the drivers. And before the races, Christian had said, I'm trying to come up with a nickname for Zach Weigel because he has graduated from high school and now he's going to college to learn to be a commercial pilot. And he said, I'm trying to come up with something to tie in the flying and the racing. And I said, well, how about the Flying Ohioan? And he said, I kind of like that. And Mama Weigel, Zach's mom, was there. And she said, I kind of like that too. And said, maybe we should ask Zach. And I said, you don't get to ask, you don't get somebody's approval for their nickname. It's just, if people like it, they're stuck with it. So that happened, and Christian started, calling, when he was calling the races, he was calling him the Flying Ohioan, and it has sort of stuck. It's kind of making its way through the media and word of mouth that he's the Flying Ohioan. And by the way, he does seem to like it, so that's kind of neat. So Christian asked me while we were in the booth, he says, "You got any nicknames, Jim?" And I said, "No, not really, but and I know it's not cool to have your own nickname, make your own nickname, but I thought, you're just kind of playing around, play off of Kyle Larson's nickname, Young Money. Maybe somebody call me Old Credit." And he laughed, and then he started using it. He's been calling me Old Credit over the. So I got some stickers made up. I don't know if everybody remembers the Bank of America cards, but they sort of look like this, and it says Bank of Racing Card, Jim Jones Motorsports, with a number 97 and zeros, and the owner of the card is Old Credit.
There you go.
So
Nice.
I've got these stickers available. I got 100 of them, $2 each. Anybody wants one, let me know. I've still got all 100, so far I haven't had any takers. But that's what I've got for merch. I don't have a TikTok. Well, I'm on the TikToks, but I don't have one of my own. I don't have Instagram or X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it. But so that's where you can find me, or come say hi at the racetrack, because I'm definitely about always there.
And last thing, sponsors that you'd like to thank?
Nobody really sponsors me. I've never been a salesman. I tried 2 different sales jobs, and I was a horrible failure. So I just find it difficult to promote myself in front of people. But I will again give thanks to Jim Leo at PitFit because they are instrumental in keeping me going. And I'd probably still go there even if I stopped racing, because it's just, they have evening classes. They've got the driver specific classes during the day, and because that's their job. And so that's, they do that during the day, but they've got some evening classes and Saturday classes that are more or less open to the public. And I I recommend if you're in the Indy area, give it a try. He'll give you a workout. He'll just about kill you, but if you stay with it and persevere, you see the benefit. I see the benefit every time I'm in the car, and I see the benefit just in my everyday life. That I feel more fit and more able to do things that previously I wasn't able to do. Keep the gut down a little bit. And I want to get a little bit more into that, and maybe be a little more strict on my diet. But I do love that prime rib. But also my wife, Adrian, AJ, the able-bodied pit doll, for helping me out. All the shops around locally that go out of their way to help the racers, like Bernie and Betsy at Indy Race Parts, and Mark Miko across the street at Earl's Indy, the guys up at Spike and CSI, Mike Magic has Full Circle Fabrication. He's one of our guys, one of our racers. His kid Michael, good little racer, and was one of the guys that was at the Chili Bowl, and he had a bad first night and tore the car up and wasn't able to really compete. But Mike's a whiz bang fabricator, man. He'll weld you up just about anything you want, and it'll look good too. So like I said, no sponsors, but just shout outs to people and products, shops that I endorse. Sure. And I do want to give credit where credit is due, because I feel like my racing is a gift from God and a blessing. And I feel like God gave me the talent to do this. Unfortunately, I was a little late in life at being able to express it. But I believe that God is in my life, and my racing is in my life for a reason, and that's to try to be to represent Him as best I can. And I just want to quote James 1:17 that says, "Every good and every perfect gift is from above and comes down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no change nor shadow of turning." And God has been with me through all of this. He led us to Indianapolis, and He got us that house, and He got me my job, and He's allowed me to fulfill my dream to drive race cars. And I will say to you out there who have a dream, don't ever think you're too old. Don't ever give up on your dreams. And one of the things that racing's not easy. There's a lot of difficulties and trials, and sometimes you're out there 110, 120 degree heat. It feels like it's 160 because of the humidity, and there's sweat running in your eyes, and you can hardly see. You can barely lift your arms, and you power through. You persevere. You have a bad night. You put your fuel filter in backwards, and you don't run, and you realize what a stupid idiot you were, but you turn it back around and you move on. And life's not easy. Nothing in life is easy, and everything worthwhile, there's a price. And sometimes the price you pay is skinned elbows and sore muscles. But if it's worth it, if you think it's worth it, if it's something you truly believe that you're called to do it. Just do it. Just keep doing it, and keep getting up and keep trying. And I'm 73 years old. I'm going to be 74 in July, and I don't see an end in sight just yet. I don't think I'm done racing. And when I am, I'll be thankful for it. And mostly who I'm thankful for is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because without Him, you're nothing. I saw Jelly Roll in the Grammys give a testimony and say, I held up this tiny little New Testament and said I had a Bible this big and a radio this big in an 8x5 cell. And I just want to tell you all that Jesus is for everybody. And I think the rest of the Grammys was a clown show, but that was a moment that people should take to heart and listen to the man because he speaks the truth. And that's about all I got to say.
A great way to wrap up another episode of Behind the Rock Screen. Jim Jones, driver of the number 97 Midget from Indianapolis, Indiana. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Josh. Pleasure.
Guys, this is Josh with the Dirt Court Jesters podcast, and we hope to see you at the track.